begin. Webinar series. I remain your host or your hostess, as the case may be, Olafadike Akeju. And on behalf of SLEC Africa, would like to thank you for taking time to join us again for another promising and very important and timely conversation on the influence of product evolution on player behavior and responsible gaming. Yes, we're discussing responsible gaming today. I'm sure we're all familiar what the concept means, what the principles are. However, as our continent continues to grow and the gaming industry evolve, so also we have witnessed products that are shaping players' engagement across the continent. From mobile first betting and crash games to real-time engagement tools, personalization system, and AI-driven user experiences. Innovation is changing not only how players interact with gaming products, but also the speed, the frequency, and the intensity of that interaction. Now, the responsible gaming conversation can no longer be limited to policy statements or having, guidelines or meeting mere compliance obligations alone. We must start considering extending this conversation to product design, behavioral psychology, technology, infrastructure, even our marketing strategy. And we need to start talking more importantly about the responsibility of not just operators and regulators, but also the stakeholders, including the game developers, those who develop this game. Now, today, we'll especially be focusing on evolving gaming products and the influence on player behavior, relationship between the product structure that we have currently and engagement patterns that we're seeing, role of technology, both on the risk side and how we can adopt it for protection, as well as what should we be looking at when we're talking about responsible gaming framework in the age of artificial intelligence and technology evolution in the African market. Now, I am so delighted today, joined by an exceptional panel of speakers who would bring both operational, technical, behavioral, psychological, and industry perspective to this conversation. Now, first, with me, we have Fisayo Oke of Gamble Alert, the CEO of Gamble Alert. Gamble Alert is a leading responsible gaming and gambling and prevention organization with deep focus on research, training, intervention, and treatment in Africa. You're welcome, Fisayo. Now, we're also joined by Kayode Lawal, who is the founder and CEO of Safer Gaming Technologies, with vast experience in responsible gaming, regulatory technology, gaming infrastructure, and digital innovation in Africa. Also with us, please welcome Dr. Abiola Salau, a medical doctor and mental health specialist whose work and expertise at the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital in Lagos provides important insights into behavioral health, psychology, and the broader human dimension of gaming and gambling related, contributing to this important conversation. Now, a few housekeeping points, as we always do. Participants are encouraged to engage respectfully through the chat and ask questions. We will take questions towards the later part of the session. So, first question, I'll come to you, Kayode. You're in tech. what have we observed? What are the observations in terms of gaming products that we have in the market today?
Thank you, and it's a great honor to be on this platform, to be able to talk to, shed more light in terms of how technology, the impact of technology, and how it's evolving in the gaming industry. So I think it's important for me just to start with the background as well, in terms of what we used to have in the past, how we are reacting to products, to users' needs to develop solution in the gaming industry, and the effects of what that is having, in the industry as well. So gambling has fundamentally changed. I mean, looking at it, and the reason why that has happened, I would say, is technology. So years back, gambling was mostly physical. You had to go somewhere, you had to go to the shops, you have to go to the local vendor, place your bets, and then go home. And you had that friction in between the time where you place the bet, when you go back, or you have to wait for like a couple of hours or a day or two before you go back into those physical store to place more bet. So that environment naturally created the limit, the friction that is needed within the industry when it comes to responsible gaming. And that friction is almost completely gone. I'm saying that because today, with your mobile phone, at 2 a.m., you can just place bet without any concern. You can easily get notification on your mobile application, and mind you, most of these notifications are tailored to the kind of product and things that you've used in the past. So it's from gambling platform today are not just, I don't look at it more like just like a betting system. They are behavioral technology platform. They are built on data, algorithm, artificial intelligence, just from what you've just highlighted earlier, real-time analytical as well, and mobile engagement that are designed, to keep people engaged, just to make the user to come back to the platform, place bet, they tailor product to those particular users as well. But at the same time, while technology has made this shift, to make it easier for users to be able to place bets, have access to the right product that they have, I personally believe technology still have critical role to play. It's the same technology that we are using to drive engagement. We can also use the same technology to protect the users as well. And I think that is the center tension of everything in terms of what we are probably from the technology side of things, areas where I'll be trying to cover here, and just to explain how some of these things are evolving as well. So I just thought I should put that as more as an intro in terms of how these products are evolving as well. So you have the technology side that's now making it more easier for users in terms of access as well. So I'll give an example in Nigeria on how technology is, changing gambling behavior in terms of mobile accessibility. So before, it used to be the case of you don't have access to smartphones for you to be able to download the mobile application that is needed, to place bet and all of that. And now and then that shifted to the point whereby you don't have enough data. But now almost everybody has at least enough data to be able to place bets and do whatever is needed on their mobile phones. So that is one bit that we need to look into. The other side as well is payment. So again, how things have been evolving, just like different industry. I'm just trying to explain the correlation, how different industries, they are all evolving, and how they are all linked to this, to gambling, and as well. So if you look at the fintech payment side as well, I would say there is literally almost little friction, and I know there are a few policies from CBN on this friction when it comes to transaction as well. So before, it might be the case of you have to put money in your account. It's not all the payment method that allow payment into the gambling and all these kind of things. But with NIPS, for example, the instant payment system, you don't even have to have the traditional bank account, for you to be able to place bets and link your card to the payment method. And then you have other things that, like the actual product itself in terms of the algorithm that is being built to maximize player value as well. So, but I believe some of these things, and you have others like the gamification, how you've made it easier for users from leaderboard, when you're playing games to make it, interesting for you to keep coming back as well. Some of them based on mission, some of them based on loyalty points, and VIP push notification, rewards, all sort of things, that are all there. Gamification is not bad, but if poorly governed, gamification can be very, very bad because it just makes you think you are not really doing much, but you are so much so into it. So the difference, I think, that we, from one of the point that I highlighted at the beginning is some of these technologies that we are using to develop some of these platforms. They also can be used consciously to help users as well. It's the same data that we are collecting to know the VIP customer. It's the same data that can trigger if that very particular user or customer have issues with responsible gaming. So all these tools are all there that we all can use. It just depends on how the operator, can leverage on some of these things. And I know like Lagos State is doing a lot in terms of that as well, in terms of the policy or how they can use some of those tools just to measure how players are doing as well in terms of policy, technology-wise as well. And you have the social and the digital. And now just going to be my final point on the some of the key features that are coming up as well. So with real-time, yes. So with the social and the digital influence, for example, you have the likes of, WhatsApp and all these things that just make it easier for users to be able to reach the operators to be able to reach the users directly as well. So these are some of the key pillars that I believe that have been evolving over time and also influencing how users and players, they play on the platform or get stuck to products on the gaming platform as well.
Thank you so much for that, Kade. Very interesting that you highlighted one, the fact that there are no delays. There's been introduction of games that do not require delays anymore. The lack of friction in payment due to the evolution, actually in another industry, the fintech, but which is also playing out and influencing and impacting the gaming industry. The fact that some of the incentives that are offered by operators, such as gamification, competition, fueled initiatives like having leaderboards and things, or even player categorization as VIP, VVIP with different benefits, are also leading to changes in the behaviors of players. Also the use of, I note you said WhatsApp, Telegram, and that's very true. Practically every gaming operator now has a dedicated player channel where they engage and come together, which also is driving change in player behavior. So there's a bit of FOMO going on. That's the fear of missing out. Now, having highlighted some of the changes we're seeing, I'm going to come to you, Dr. Abiola, just to highlight for us, based on this evolving technology, has there been an evolution in maybe some of the people that you've had to engage with who are probably dealing with problem gambling in one form or the other? Has there been an evolution? How do they clinically present? Forgive me, I hear, if that's not the right use of the terminology. How do they present when they come to you? And what impact has this product evolution had on treatment?
Okay, thank you very much, Akeji, for that. And Coyote has really said a lot of vital things that has happened to the gaming industry over the years. And I think in summary, those changes have actually increased, just as you have said, player engagement. It has also increased the frequency of gambling. You get, and also it has also, in quotes, also promotes recruiting greater amount of money, so a bit of maybe greater financial risk. And this changes also has increased impulsive gambling. And perhaps I would say that because it's driven by technology, so more and more of young people are now being involved in gambling. And as he has said so far, also regarding the physical, form, now we are going to online. Now we're saying mobile gaming, stuff like that. So the social control is actually also lost. So people can just be in their room and they would engage with services, with gaming services, spend huge amount of money. So it's kind of encouraged secrecy. So all those things that actually didn't just happen because they should happen, but there are also some clinical basis why all these things happen, and which I will say little about that. Then I will now go to the clinic. So I just don't want to jump to the clinic direct. So some of the reason why this has happened is because gambling reward based on variable ratio. So when we say variable ratio, what we mean is that an average gambler does not know when they win, but they know that the more I play, the more I win. So your winning is dependent on the number of times you play. So that means that the platform trying to keep them on the platform to encourage them to play, and also making it so emotionally enticing. He's mentioned something about AI, so all those things makes people to stay and play more, and that also underpins some of the problems that we see in the clinic. So another thing that I would also like to mention also is that all these things that has happened in terms of the evolution in the gaming industry, I've also try to look at it in terms of the biological aspect. When I mean biological aspect, I mean the changes that happen in the brain. So we know that an average person that gambles wants a reward. That is the truth. We can't deny that. Nobody gambles to lose. However, the industry have sometimes tried to put the reward earlier. And I know there are some platforms that when you register, they give you bonuses, they give you rewards, even without even engaging. So that reward, what it does is to the brain is that it increases the level of the dopamine. And dopamine is generally called the happy hormone. So this would also encourage people to continue to play on the platform. And apart from that too, as repeated playing happens, there is likelihood of being impulsive. And when we look at the brain also, there is some part of the brain that tries to control our impulse. We used to call it the front part of the brain. So when that happens, sometimes the regulation is quite lower, and we see people try to become impulsive when they play bets, and that's on the longer term increases their risk of developing either problem gambling or they even go into full-time addiction. And then all these things that I've said, where there could be more to it, but however, it's just a brief. And when we look at this, all these things that I've said have actually also shaping how things have been in the clinical practice. So I think one of it I'll talk about is the prevalence. So now we've seen that before in the clinic, we hardly even see gambling disorder. That is the truth. We'll be talking of other things like drug and addiction. But recently, I think gambling is now one of the leading form of addiction now, in addition to drug and drugs. So now the prevalence is on the high side. More and more people are coming to the clinic with gambling problem. Another thing also we've noticed in the clinic is that apart from this gambling problem, there are also other psychosocial problem. So psychological in terms of people having things like depression, anxiety, and also things like suicidal ideation, suicidal attempts. So all these things together, are coming as extra baggage. Let me use that word, extra baggage to the gambling problem. Then the social problems we all know, financial problem, legal problem, into debt, all these things are things that are really happening, and we witness this in the clinic. So apart from this increased problems, would also have that now the age is kind of going down. So there's like a downward trend in the first age of gambling. So now we see people below the age of 18. And I know the industry always frown at the underage gambling. So yes, we know that the industry is fine, but now in the real world, people at a younger age are now engaging in gambling platform, and that also raises serious concern because from what we do know is that the lower the age that which one get engaged with gambling, the worse the prognosis in terms of treatment. Then I think in the clinic too, what I would say is that we've now been just as Mr. Kayode has said, there are also other platforms now apart from online sports betting. So we've seen things like casino, even some games now. I don't know. I've seen someone told me there is a game I play. I just wonder what is these games they're all about. So now we've seen other form of gambling apart from the typical coupon or sports betting that would say that that are usually much common in the past. So then you said I should also talk about treatment. So I think when we talk about treatment of any addictive behavior in general, we will always look at three major things. We look at accessibility, availability, and affordability. What I would say is that the current evolution and whatever thing tech has done to gaming industry, it has fueled these three key factors. So it is now available, it is now accessible, and it is now affordable. And why I say that is because those three things usually is a risk factor for relapse. So even when we treat people in the clinic, so imagine we've successfully treated someone in the clinic, and the person is just going on and with his phone, and what you just see is pop-up ads, and you just be wondering, is it that will I ever be in quotes secluded from this environment? So the key thing is that those three factors that actually really make treatment very difficult. It has, in quotes, increased the relapse rate and sometimes also worsen our client prognosis. Well, I would also agree with Kayode too. Technology is very important, and I would always say that technology is a two-way sword. So it has its own good side, and it also has its own bad side. I know I've just been highlighting the bad side, but just as Kayode has said, all these things can also be leveraged on to protect the player, or to foster responsible, or to also improve treatment availability, treatment assessment, and also as well as treatment outcome. So I think this discussion is right on time, and I would appreciate SLEC for even bringing up this discussion. So we shouldn't only be focused on using technology to increase revenue. We should also be trying to use this technology to help people and also help reduce the risks of them coming down with gambling related harms. Thank you.
Problem gambling. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. In fact, there's so much to unpack in what you have said. So much to unpack in terms of the biological, the clinical, and the social effects that we're seeing. And I note that you said prior to now, you used to get more patients in clinic who had problem with other forms of addiction, but now gambling addiction, or problem gambling as it were, not just addiction, but just problem gambling is taking over in that space, which would make me come to Fisayo. Fisayo, I know you are a numbers guy, facts and figures and all the data out there, and you're also involved in treatment and intervention. You engage with the underage. You're trying to catch them young and nip it in the bud as well. But what exactly are you seeing over the years? What are the changes that you have seen manifesting from an operational perspective, from somebody who's actually in the industry and offering intervention to players as well as engaging with operators?
Okay, thank you very much. And like Doctor said, I think that this conversation is on time. And I appreciate the fact that Mr. Kayode already laid the background to the technological evolution, so I'm not going to do a lot of repetition. I'll just speak to the numbers, as you said, and then speak to policy as well, right? And I think everyone on this call agrees that, gambling is an evolving market, and we also agree that all gambling products, no matter whether it's online or it's offline, can cause one sort of harm or the other. Although we know that some products are more likely to do harm to players than others. But ultimately, what we found is that harmfulness is not static across gambling products, right? So it's not necessarily because it is this product and then year in, year out, you will now find this amount of harm. No. Gambling harm, as much as technological innovation is coming, we are seeing gambling harm evolving alongside with them. It's also evolving alongside market development, regulatory changes. So if you want to look at how gambling harm has evolved, you want to look at all of these things holistically. You're looking at technology, you're looking at the market, you're looking at the regulatory changes as well. And I'm going to, try to compare a few jurisdictions. First, the Nordic countries, and then maybe a bit of Nigeria, and then the UK. Right. So in Denmark, Finland, and Sweden, these are three Nordic countries. They try to find out from their helpline contacts what products most contacts were interacting with, and then they realized that over the period of 3 years, online casinos, which includes the virtual gaming and what have you now, moved from about 63% to around 70%, and then online sports betting moved from around 5% to about 17%. And then for land-based activities, it dropped from 44.4% to about 10%, right? So harm continued to evolve, as you would see from this data, as technology innovation, moved. In the UK as well, in 2025 January, GambleAware published a report to show which products most people were interacting with and which products were causing the highest amount of harm. And they found out that electronic gaming machines, which are physical machines anyway, are associated with the greatest risk of harm. So if you look at the Nordic countries, they're talking about online casino, which is very close to what we are experiencing as well in Nigeria. Most of the helpline contacts that we receive are from online casinos. But then in the UK, we found in 2025 that the electronic gaming machines, were associated with the greatest amount of harm. But that's telling us something. In fact, from their research, they found out that esports betting was associated with greater harm than sports betting. That's in the UK. So, that's telling us something, that gambling product is not on its own harmful in isolation. So the harmfulness depends on interacting variables like speed of play, accessibility, like Dr. mentioned, the frequency, the immersion, reinforcement, design, as you personalize algorithm as well, portability of the device, and all the other factors that you could think of. When all these variables that we have mentioned change, the product harm profile would also change. So it's not necessarily about the product, it's always what features in the product need to be checked. So the policy question would not be which product is harmful, should we ban it, should we remove it, should we over-regulate it, should we under-regulate it, should we leave it as it is. It should always be which structural features produce harm, because really, if you move all those features from the online space back to the physical space, what you would also realize is that gambling harm would follow that movement. So if you regulate only based on a particular product, what you realize that you're doing is, as a regulator, you are chasing the market every now and then. So that's what we have noticed in terms of evolution. It's always about where is the market headed, what is the technology saying, and then what's the regulatory changes that we're seeing, in the market. All of these things are very important in shaping how much, harm grows or it reduces.
Thank you so much for that, Fisayo. I hear you. The problem is not the product itself. It's not gambling. It's not that. It is other variables, that are the problem. Because one thing we have noticed just off the back of what you said is that in terms of regulating gambling, most regulators, what they would do is, okay, it's online gaming, it's this product. Then they take steps or measures, to make it more difficult for online gaming, to thrive. They increase monetization, as we have seen happening in places like even Nigeria here and South Africa with respect to online gaming. We're also seeing changes in Kenya, in a few other African jurisdictions like that. So what you're saying is it's not the product that we should be monitoring. It is variables such as accessibility, the speed, and how all of this are interacting, and that players would necessarily, they'll follow. Even if we ban online gaming today, they'll find a way, and then it's just land-based, we'll still probably see the same problems manifesting in different forms in that area. Okay, thank you for that. So that then brings us to the question. My question then, banning online gaming, generally, you've talked about online casino, what the research is showing, that online casino and then online sports betting, whilst the number is increasing, land-based is reducing. Is that necessarily the same thing in the African markets that you are monitoring? Because our reaction in Africa is, can we ban online? Can we increase the barrier to entry in African markets? Can we necessarily say that land-based, if such research is carried out here in Africa, the results will be the same?
Well, so we can only make assumptions because we've not done the research here in Africa yet. However, what we've seen is that largely our motivation for gambling in Africa is entirely different from what we see in other parts of the world. Yes, everybody's gambling to make some money, but then some persons have seen it as a sort of income and what have you. So we still find a lot of people going into the retail stores to play. Some of them don't, in fact, use the online platform. And you cannot say categorically that a number of them are also not experiencing gambling harm, right? So the data from the Nordic countries may not entirely be applicable. But what have we seen in terms of our own helpline contact across the different African countries is that online casino has produced the highest in terms of our contact, and it goes without saying. So most of the callers are always between the ages of 18 and 40. So there are people who are able to easily access smartphones, the internet, so they have accessibility to this platform, so they are able to go on. And then because it's fast-paced, like I said, affordability, they are able to afford. It's not a lot of money, so they just continue on the platform. So we've seen that here, that online casino generally poses the highest of risk of harm to players. However, like I mentioned, it doesn't always matter whether it is online or it is physical. It doesn't always matter whether, in fact, what you would see is when we say that online casino has the highest level of risk, we're not saying that other platforms don't have the risk at all. When I started, I mentioned that every gambling product has a risk of causing harm to the player. Right, so it's almost always the interaction. Every one of them has it. But then if you move technological innovation to a point, then gambling harm would also follow suit. So if you bring that innovation back to the physical, we're saying that we may not necessarily be copying gambling harm. What we would ultimately be doing is transporting harm from online casino to the maybe electronic gaming machines like they have in the UK, or in fact our retail-based operations.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that, Fesaya. Very interesting. And then you've summarized quite well that it's not the product. If you change location, if you change product, It means you're just moving the location of where the gambling arm is likely to manifest and reside. Thank you for that. So now, very quickly, we're just going to move to, technology and what we're using it to say. So I'm coming back to you, Kayode. You did mention earlier that the same product, the same tools that operators, regulators are using, to analyze data, to increase profitability, as it were, increase engagement, can also be used to promote responsibility, right? And we're aware that you have introduced and you're working in collaboration, your organization has introduced and is working in collaboration with the Lagos State Lotteries and Gaming Authority, which is a laudable initiative to introduce the Safe Play platform, right? So how receptive has the industry been to this Safe Play platform? And more importantly, you have started in Lagos, but we have a situation whereby regulation is fragmented. And whilst Lagos has a significant market in Nigeria, it's not representative of the entire market or the entire problem. What are the issues, the challenges, the wins so far for the Safe Play platform?
Thank you. With technology, either way you look at it, it's just an enabler. Yeah, you can use it wherever it is you want to use it, but it's just an enabler. You can tailor it to whatever it is that you want to. And one of the things that my organization we find out is, look, there's still massive gap in terms of developing tools that help people with responsible gambling and all of that. So, start with Safe Play. Look, there's no way we're going to get this right from start. In terms of the core functionality that we have, it's just not possible. And with product development, if you are to wait until you want to get it perfect, you're not going to go to market. Yeah. So it's always better you push it out, feedback, iterate, move on, and keep developing. At least today, this started roughly like a year ago. At least today we're talking about Safe Play, and within that period, we've changed different models in terms of the development of that platform, from API to manual to downloading Excel to all sort of, for us to get to this point. But the most important thing is, one, the awareness is there in terms of using technology to drive responsible gaming. It's a start. I wouldn't be surprised if we start to have more tools that come in that we can integrate into Safe Play as well, that will help people long term. So that's very important that we have a platform like Safe Play as a centralized self-exclusion platform. Now, if you look at other industry or country, so if you look like UK, for example, they were reacting. So you have a case whereby you have a petition and everyone submitted, all right, people are losing a lot of money, then it goes to the House, then they will pass the law, all right. I was part of the process for, we used to have the roulette, for example, like £100 spin. And then there was a time a policy came that we had to reduce this to like £20. And mind you, but as soon as that changed, most of the operators now change the stake. So we used to have the minimum stake for slot. It used to be £5 or something. And now that flipped and changed to £100. So from just roulette, because a lot of spas regulate, and then it just switched, and people started to play slot more than even the roulette that was cutting arm. But so I'm just trying to say, look, technology will always be there. It just depends on what we want to use it for. So back to Safe Play, I think it's a start. A lot of feedback, and some of the operators have been very, very helpful. A lot of feedback in terms of how it can make the platform to be much more easier for them operationally. That is there, and the regulator as well. I think a lot of awareness will be going on right now. Campaign for users to know more about it in terms of Safe Play is going to work and everything as well. And then onboarding and training the operators as well. So it's a start. Now, with time, Safe Play will evolve and become more like a national platform. But most importantly, we have a regulator in Lagos that have taken up the initiative to start at least with something. You see, I heard about something similar to Safe Play roughly like 4 years ago in age. And everybody talking about centralized, but who has taken the step to actually go and develop the platform? Right now, it's now more about suggestion. It's not about the wish. It's not about, now it's with technology, you start with something and it will evolve to be able that we make. And that's something that countries like Canada, they've done well. I think Canada roughly started like 5 years ago, and now right from the beginning they have like a centralized platform like Safe Play that they've just pushed out. Australia has the same thing as well. So it is start. It will evolve. There's other product that we have in the pipeline that will be part of it and integrated as well. But I think we're moving in the right direction. It can only get better from where we are, and by the time we have other partners who come and be part of the platform as well, I think it will go a long way. But just to highlight, we have the technology side, we have the counseling side, we have the psychological side, those who have to support people. Whatever data we collect from Safe Play, we have to be passed to the the expert like the likes of Fisayo and Dr. Salawu to help here, because Safe Play is just a technology enabler. There's nothing much we can do apart from that. So I think it will evolve with time as well, but it's a good start and it's been going very well to this point.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Kayode. Just to briefly highlight what Safe Play is, unlike before, where every operator, even till now, every gaming platform has got responsible gaming tools, including restrictive tools, which is where you can limit the time, the money, the bet, or even self-exclude from gambling if you have a problem. Unlike that platform that is operator specific, Safe Play is a platform where if a player chooses to go and self-exclude on that platform, then he sends a message to the operators, such that if that player tries to register on any of the subscribing operators, let me qualify that, subscribing operators platform, okay, you can correct me if I'm wrong, operators platform, then they get a message, they know that this person has self-excluded. And it also helps in the player journey, because before now, what we will see is a player could self-exclude on platform A and then go to operator B and still continue gambling. Right. Okay. All right. Thank you. So now I'm going to come to Dr. Abiola. You did say that, yes, you painted a scenario where you have a patient, is waiting in the waiting room, and an advert pops up. It's encouraging him to gamble and gamble again. With products or technology like enablers like Safe Play, how can these be integrated into treatment, or platforms like this? How can they be integrated into treatment, and what impact do you think ultimately it would have?
All right. Thank you so much for that. I think Mr. Kayode has actually mentioned the part of the Safe Play, and I think we're also part of the. I think the platform also has a place for treatment, and when services are needed, so the player could just easily access services from the platform, and also part of the people that that has been also being in the platform. So I think what I've said earlier just has to do with some key factor to relapse. And I think one of the things which I actually tried to mention then is the power of cues. So sometimes when people already have problem with gambling, they may relapse when they see cues that, kind of bring back the memory of the gambling experience. So that could make them go back to gamble, and that could also further reinforce the behavior. So I think some of the things we can do, just as Mr. Kayode has said, is that maybe there is a way to perhaps, I know he spoke about self-exclusion, and there could also be a way to perhaps maybe block apps and an advert. I think that would be possible, maybe with the IP address. I don't know. I think Kayode will be able to say much about that. So let's see how that could also help. And I think that is one of the things. I think some of the things that we could also do, because relapse, that could be one of the factors that may also increase relapse. So I think we can also look at other factors too, which would be things like also the platform trying to have a bit of like follow-up, so that it would be, yes, I think so encouraging things like treatment follow-up also into the platform. So there's a way that we can also try and reach out to the client on the platform to know how they are doing, to know, so it won't just be like a one-off referral, let me use that word. So a player has come into this platform, he has clicked to organization for help, and that is all. Safe Play has done his work. So I think the work of Safe Play should still continue alongside, the treatment. So just as I've mentioned, maybe a means of exclusion, blocking adverts, follow-up, really very, very important. So I think Safe Play could also come in into that aspect of treatment. I don't know if that's Coyote, if that would be possible.
Yes.
I don't know.
I'm going to give him a chance to respond. Yes.
Okay.
No, it's possible. And look, that's why, platform like Safe Play, it's more of, you have different stakeholders. It's not, look, with technology, we can do anything. Wherever it is, we can do. But the different stakeholders, what do they need? And the role of a platform like Safe Play is to just link everybody together. It's not just a case of user coming, they self-exclude themselves and just leave them. Someone that's been gambling for almost 5 months, 5 years, decide to self-exclude. The person will be looking for something else to do. And these are some of the things that, what are the things that's going to replace the behavior or things that they've been doing in the past as well, because you're creating a loophole. Things like that, we don't know much about it. We're just a technology firm. The likes of Isaiah, the likes of Doctor here can help. So this kind of patients, we need to find a way just to, after they've taken their action, there's a pipeline for them to go through, or for organizations to have access to the database, reach out to them, and then just follow up from there. So these are some of the key core functionalities that we have in place. And thank you for some of these things you just mentioned as well. We're going to add them to the backlog, and then the platform will just keep evolving till we get to there, to the point where we are all, satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'd like at this point just to acknowledge very quickly, the Lagos State Lotteries and Gaming Authority. They are one regulator that has provided, leadership, and which is exemplary in this industry in the fight against responsible gaming. It may not always be obvious, it may not always be what we want to see, but at least we see the effort, we see the impact that it is having, and then we see that they're quite open to this conversation. So on that, we'd like to, this is a shout out to the Lagos State Lotteries and Gaming Authority. Of course, I'm very proud to be affiliated with that authority, on many fronts. Now, having said that, Visayo, I'm coming to you. The conversation, we keep hammering on this responsible gaming. We talk about it all the time. And sometimes people look at us and they're looking at people like me, people like you, and they're like, you guys are talking about responsible gaming. We're all in this business together. This is where we make whatever it is that we're making. This is where we do whatever it is we're doing. This is where we find our purpose. Are we trying to say that this business should not be profitable? Is that what we're saying? Are we trying to introduce policies, that maybe eradicates gambling? Is it even possible to eradicate gambling? What exactly is that message? Because it needs to be very clear. We need to state it very clearly what it is that responsible gaming is actually hammering on, especially in this day and age.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that the idea that one will be thinking of banning gambling in the name of responsible gambling is out of place. In fact, it comes from a place of very limited understanding of what player protection is about. And so I love to talk about research a lot. In the UK, there was a research that was recently done. This, I think it was in fact released in April. The report from that research was done in April. And they were trying to find out if you reduce the gross gambling yield, of the industry, what happens to the macro economy of the country? And they found out that, look, there will be around 19% of them, going into the black market. Some will redirect their finances into other things. So at the end of the day, maybe it would affect, maybe they are not sure whether it's going to affect the macro economy. Sadly, if you compare that with Africa, you would make a lot of mistakes. And that's because the motivation for gambling is entirely different. The average guy who is playing in Nigeria or who is playing in Africa is looking to make money. So for him, gambling is not always entertainment. And that's where you find a lot of people. That's why a lot of people are chasing losses. So if you draw your curve, you would find that where you will find a mean, a lot of people would be where they are chasing losses. So really, if you reduce gambling activities altogether in Africa, you may not, in fact, have curbed any gambling harm. So the idea of responsible gaming is always about sustainability. It's always about player health, looking at a public health perspective, right? Because very many times you would see that when the industry is talking about responsible gaming, they're talking about individual responsibility, which is where advocates like myself and a few others have concerns. You cannot always individualize responsibility when it comes to responsible gambling, especially if we know that there are products that have features that are capable of, harming such players. So we want to move away from individual responsibility to the entire ecosystem, saying that all of us should have a responsibility given the public health perspective. Because for one player that is harmed by gambling, there are about 6 to 7 others who are connected to him. That's the point that we're making around responsible gambling. We've got to look beyond the player. We've got to look at the society as well. How do we build a society that is riddled with a whole lot of gambling harm? We want to reduce that likelihood. We know that we cannot take away gambling harm 100%. In fact, if you ban gambling today, you effectively are moving a number of persons to the black market, especially given the fact that now we have 22, 23 states who are individually regulating gambling activities in the country. So if you ban gambling, for instance, in Lagos State, I can easily move into another state and gamble at the end of the day. So what responsible gambling have I done? And I think that the questions we should begin to ask would be, if certain product features are demonstrably associated with increasing harm, we should now begin to ask ourselves, do we need to begin to voluntarily or regulatory wise now adjust those features? So our baseline design standards, should we have them when it comes to high-risk product categories? We've noticed that, technology has moved this direction. Should we have baseline design standards towards those products? And then how do we approach harm minimization across board, such that the market viability as well is there? Because really, the only reason we're talking about responsible gambling is because gambling exists. So if the market goes away, responsible gambling as well goes away. You can't talk to a market that is not regulated. Nothing will be done. So you want to encourage those who are within the regulated market. You want to ensure that they also maintain their viability. But off the top of every other thing, we want to think about the competitive advantage for gaming operators. So if Company A is doing a lot in terms of the baseline design standard that we have mentioned, and Company B is not doing it, what you have effectively done is to put Company A at a competitive disadvantage. So we need to begin to look at adopting safer product configuration that will go across board. I think that these are conversations that we need to begin to have around responsible gaming, not about banning, not about, there are countries that have attempted to ban gambling activities in their countries. What we've seen is that players effectively just moved into either vices or they move into the black market. So the idea of banning gambling, I don't think it has a place in the responsible gaming discourse.
Right. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. And it's important that you did point out that you did point out that if we decide, if we choose as a nation or as countries in Africa to ban gambling, we're only making the problem worse, because then we lose control, we lose oversight. But I hear, and I'm going to ask a follow-up, or maybe I'll take it to Kayode, who is in tech. I have a question around what you raised, Visaya, just now, about products. If we see products that tend to be problematic, or tend to drive or encourage, I'm choosing my words, trying to choose my words carefully, gambling, addiction, and then harm to the player, perhaps it needs to be regulated. I'll come back to you on the regulatory framework that we should be looking at, Fisayo, in a minute. But I want to come quickly to Kayode. There does not seem, the focus seems to always be on operator shield, or sometimes the player should have more control. The players, are we looking at the tech providers, the product developers? Should regulation extend to product development? Because for most African countries, you're here. Go ahead. Most African countries, regulation starts from the operator getting a license based on the document, the facts, engagement with the regulator at the regulator level. Should we be considering taking a few steps back and saying, let's look at the portal, let's look at the software, let's look at the products that you're introducing to market?
Yes, and thank you for raising that. I think that's very, very important, because look, the way gaming has evolved, especially in this part of the world, I think regulators it has been more like a catch-up in terms of, right, look, this has just happened, where the framework we quickly need to have in place. And sometimes these things happen, especially in a new environment, because look, all the other environment that we're comparing, they've been around for hundreds of years, some of them, over a decade. So we are where we are. But I think from what you've just said right now, it's important, if any operator is trying to come into the market, regulators should be able to present to them in terms of the core functionality that is needed, from anti-money laundering, key features that need to be on the platform, to the responsible gaming, key features that need to be on the platform, to the game rules that the operator needs to read through just to make sure the house rule is fair and open, to even the rules of voiding bet and all sort of things. So I think we need to have more like a template like that anybody that is trying to come into the industry is being that's sent to the operator before they can go live, because they need to get the approval and the sign off of the regulator to go live if they've met those kind of technical functionality. So that is very, very important. So I think from where the industry, because if we continue this way, we'll always play catch up with technology. There is no way. Innovation things are evolving just overnight. So I think regulator can be in control of that in terms of the existing operator. These are the core functionalities we would like you to have on your platform by so time. It might take a while for them because they will have to work on their platform. But at least let's start just like where we started with Safe Play. Let's start with the new guys who will be coming in. Have a standard template in terms of the core functionalities that are needed from these key areas that we've highlighted, and then send it to them. And I'm quite close with the regulator and things like that, things that they've already been putting, especially Lagos State, already been putting in place a pipeline, just to make sure that any new operator coming into the market are able to comply with that, including Safe Play as well. So it is start. I think the most important thing is just for us to start from somewhere, and then that document will only grow as well.
All right. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for that. Before I come to framework, to Fisayo telling us about what we should be looking at in terms of framework, I'd like to come to Dr. Salah, Dr. Abiola for a minute. I mean, from a healthcare perspective, right? You did talk about accessibility, availability, affordability. Two questions, right, from a medical perspective. Should we, as a country, that's Nigeria, and then maybe even Africa, other African countries, should we be looking at accepting and putting it out there publicly that gambling related harm are a form of sickness, for lack of a better word, or an health issue that should be that should be recognized, one, and then perhaps covered by schemes like health HMOs? That's one. And then two, we're having these conversations, we're going to be going into the framework that we should have now. Should we also be considering involving more medical practitioners? Because I don't consider that if I go to a GP now, he would immediately recognize, and I'm like, I don't feel well, I feel like something is wrong. If somebody who's struggling with gambling goes to a GP and says, I don't feel well, that it would immediately be recognized as a health issue, as an ailment, just as malaria and every other ailment is.
All right. So I think the first question regarding I think about problem gambling and whether it should be or it should not be a health condition. So I think I will just give a bit of background so that we would understand what gambling problems are. So, well, in the past, and it has always been, gambling problem has actually always been a mental health condition. Yeah, so it has always been classified as a mental health condition, and it has not been left out. However, there are some evolutions that has happened, because also in medicine, when we make our diagnosis, there are things that will follow, there are guidelines that will follow. So in the past, gambling was thought to be more of gambling problems. So those that have problem gambling or addiction, as it is now, it was thought that it was more of an impulse control problem. So they see it from the social aspect and look at, these people don't have problem. They just have problem with controlling their impulse. But over time, and in recent manuals, the edition, even the previous edition before the latest edition now, problem gambling, whatever you want to call it, problem gambling addiction, gambling disorder are actually classified as a mental health condition. Although these terms, they might be similar, but they are a bit different. So when we say disorder, which is the word we prefer to use as a mental health expert, is because disorder does not only point to addiction, it also points to other problems, which could be social, which could be financial, which could be legal. So there are a lot of social problems also, and that is why we look at it as, this person is gambling, but there is a problem associated with the gambling. And as I said earlier, it is classified as a mental health condition. And for the HMOs, I know it's not because of there's not only because of gambling. I just want to speak generally in terms of mental health now. There have been low involvement of HMO, medical health management organization, with mental health condition generally. Yes, and the reason for that is that, I don't know, maybe because of the need for continuous follow-up, continuous monitoring, and maybe if they look at the business, it does not pay them. I don't know, but I think they've not been a good involvement of HMOs with mental health condition in general, as well as gambling problems. So it's a thing that maybe we need to look at from our own side also, and perhaps if you guys too could also help from the regulators, the operator, and the stakeholders, and see what we can do about that. But sincerely speaking, the HMOs are not really involved in generally mental health condition as well as gambling problem. You need to write and talk to them before they would even give approval. Then I think the second question has to do with the general practitioner. So, well, I understand those are the peculiarities with gambling, because they've been so much, just as I said, it's seen as a social problem, and there is a bit of, let's say, normalization. And once we have problems, that are normalized, there's usually a thin line between the normal and the abnormal. For instance, not only gambling, things like maybe taking alcohol too. Yes, it's normal. So if you go to a GP and just tell the GP I'm drinking, yeah, maybe the GP to also drink. So like you are drinking, and so what? So when we have behavior that are normal, and there's the abnormal part, which there's usually a thin line. So a lot of people find it difficult to actually, to be able to pinpoint what that line is. So fine, the GP may feel like this person is gambling. Yes, gambling is. So, but however, it is recognized that people can have problems with gambling. It's a fact. It's evidence-driven. It's theoretically driven. It's biologically driven. It's biologically driven that gambling can cause problem. Gambling, people can become addicted. So I don't think we should argue about that. But the thing is that, what are we now doing? I think that is the major thing. Yes, I know from our own aspect, we also need to perhaps look at the GP, the other practitioners who are not mental health experts. We need to do more of training and retraining to also, so that they'll be able to identify those problems and perhaps how we can help those that have problems with gambling.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Because as you have said, it is perceived as a social problem. And if it is, a social problem, also a medical problem, then we all should be aware of it and not take it for granted. It would help towards many more people getting access to help. Right. Before I come to you, Fisayo, we've got questions in in the chat. I think a few of those questions have been addressed. Thank you so much for that, Kayode. Someone is asking, how can safe play be assessed by players? But to Fisayo, do you see advantages in enabling product-specific exclusion? I think you've addressed this, but I'll read the question anyway. This is in relation to the point about virtual games being the most addictive. 90% of people that seek help with us are addicted to virtual games. How can we enable enforcement of state regulatory laws? Over 68% of operators are not fully compliant with responsible gambling laws. Take Section 5C of Lagos State Lotteries and Gaming Authority as an example. Yeah, I think you addressed the first part. The second part goes to the framework that we should be looking at in terms of regulating in the age of AI, in the age of technology, without losing control, without killing or stifling the industry at the same time. So what are the, key measures? Just high-level overview, because I know that there's a symposium coming up where we'll talk about this much more in details, but just high-level overview. What should we be looking at? What should we be focusing on at this time?
Okay, thank you very much. And indeed, very interesting questions from the person. So the first question around product-specific exclusion, I don't think it speaks to what I earlier mentioned, because what I was talking about is looking at features. I think that this person is looking at, since we're talking about self-exclusion, is there a possibility of having self-exclusion specifically for certain products, right? And I think that it makes sense. I'm not sure how many jurisdictions that has been tested and seen to be successful, right? But it will also tested, given the fact that if we have by research established that there are a number of harms that are connected to certain products, yes, it would make sense to test it out, because again, in reality, not very many persons who want to actually exclude themselves totally from gambling. But then I'm sure that Dr. Salawu does not agree with me, because if you are excluding yourself from a particular product, it means that there's harm involved. You shouldn't be reinforcing it by going to a different product, But in terms of individual interest and want, it may make sense to, try out the product-specific exclusion. And then to regulators, what they need to begin to think about now, it should be that responsible gambling generally should be a part of the licensing framework. So you don't get a license if, when we have checked your platform, we see that it's capable of harming people more than any other product. You're bringing in a product, we've seen certain features in the product that will keep people glued to your platform. We don't want to give you a license for this until you have adjusted it. I think that when we begin to introduce that to the licensing framework, we'll have less people who are getting licenses anyway, and then we'll have people who will now enjoy, their gambling activities over and above what we currently see. Finally, I'll be talking about the features themselves. So you want to think about regulating based on features and not based on product. So look at all of the gambling categories that we have. Go to the casinos, whether physical or online, check for sports betting, retail or online. You want to look at lotto, lottery, you want to check at all of those. What features especially are harmful to the players? How do we tone those features out rather than just regulating based on a product? Because at the end of the day, you may not be winning the battle if you are regulating based on a product. It should be that regulators are able to identify the markers of harm. What are those features because if you don't recognize the features, you cannot properly actually regulate and reduce it. So regulators need to be learned enough to know all of these features, know the markers of harm, and then they will be able to ensure enforcement. It makes sense as well that, like I mentioned about competitive advantage, that so there are no sacred cows, there are no people who can get away with RG failure. The same way we don't joke with anti-money laundering, we don't joke with data breaches, we must not be joking with responsible gaming failure. If a gaming operator fails in ensuring responsible gambling on their platform, if someone gets addicted, and we're not saying that people will not get addicted at all. We're saying if you can trace it to a failure on your part, then someone should be punished for it. I think that when we do all of these things cumulatively, we will see changes in the space.
Thank you so much for that, Fisaya. Thank you. I'm conscious of time at this point because we try very hard not to keep people for longer than necessary. Do we have any questions? If you've got questions, you can raise your hand at this point, or you can drop it in the chat still, and we will take your questions very quickly. While I wait for that, this conversation on responsible gaming is one that we cannot exhaust here. And, it gives me great joy and, pleasure to see that some organizations have taken it upon themselves to organize and create spaces where conversations can be had on responsible gaming initiative. And on that note, I'm just going to highlight here, because we invited Fisayo to join this panel graciously, without hesitation. He very quickly accepted that invitation. There's going to be a symposium organized by Gamble Alert, the Responsible Gaming Symposium. This is not the first of its kind, actually. This is the second, edition. Fisaya, am I correct? This is the second edition. And this year's theme is Building Accountability, Strengthening Africa's Model for Player Protection. It's happening on the 11th of June. It's a day event. 10 a.m. in Ikeja, the Podium International Event Center at Ikeja in Lagos. I have seen the lineup of speakers, and I know that there has been a bit of deliberate, intentional, attention to the panelists as well as speakers for this event. I implore you, please attend if you can. Please attend if you can. This conversation, again, to reiterate, the issue, the objective is not to prohibit the industry. It is to ensure that it is here for much longer, and that it continues to contribute responsibly to the macroeconomics of Nigeria. There are too many people that are engaged by this industry. Many of us, were employed by gaming companies. We have people who are agents out there, they're working in this industry, they're feeding their families from this industry. We have people who are entertained by this industry. But then again, as with every sector and every industry, there is a fallout. There are challenges. Those challenges is what we're here to collectively and responsibly take control of, to make sure we're addressing consistently. Thank you. I see someone's hand up. Has he been enabled? Can he speak? I see a Gabriel.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, please. Very quickly, your question.
Thank you. I just want to say well done, fantastic to all of you. Fisaya, Salawo, Kayode, Olufat, Barake, thank you for this conversation. Very important one. I have two very quick questions. Kayode, the first one is to you. With Safe Play, what is the typical timeline for exclusion? The reason I ask this is because sometimes, we have cases where underage people come and they need immediate help. So if it is a longer timeline, they might relapse into harm. That's one. The second one is a bit around the macroeconomic, but I won't go into details. Over 99% of people that come for help present with debt. So basically, there's a huge debt profile among player population. How do we address that? And anyone can answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I'll take the first one, and thank you for raising that. So the timeline that we have 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and then 5 years, and permanently if you want to self-exclude yourself. It will probably depends on the operator, but what we're working towards is roughly a week after the person they've done the self-exclusion on SafePlay for all the operator to implement it on their platform. So in terms of the timeline, the duration for exclusion, it's 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and 5 years, and permanently as well.
Right. Thank you. Who's going to take the second question?
Okay, I'm going to try to, I'm not sure I understand exactly what the intention is, but I understand that, we also have seen examples of people who present with a lot of debt issues and what have you. What we typically do at our organization is that, so we have lawyers on our team as well who will talk to you about structuring the debt and paying it back. But then before getting to the issue of debt, I'm always concerned about the RG failure that led to the issue of someone borrowing to play on your platform. Every customer on your platform has a profile, a risk profile, by the way. So you have your KYC. Your KYC is not just for anti-money laundering or data protection or what have you. It's also so that you would know the risk profile of every player. So when a player plays to a point, sometimes you realize that it's the use of multiple credit or debit cards, or this person is playing in the middle of the night. Some of these things that are supposed to trigger interventions, you neglect them, and that's what leads us to this place. If a person is playing above what his KYC level is, there should be some level of intervention, and if it's not satisfactory what the responses are, you don't allow them. It's still a matter of prioritizing revenue over responsible gambling intervention. I think that's where the problem is. But in terms of helping someone who is in debt, I don't see the likelihood of asking a gaming operator to assist a person to pay his debt. Rather, when they come for intervention, what we do is to ensure that the debt repayment is structured based on agreements that we have with the person.
Right. Just as a follow-up on that question, because we have seen in time past where I think some organizations were offering to help pay off the debts of some of these persons manifesting gambling problems, right? Does that ultimately help? Is that helpful, really? Is that should that be the approach that we take, in addressing this issue?
Well, so I think that it goes in two ways. Majorly, what you're doing is to enable gambling activity. So it's like you're distributing money to students when you're teaching them about underage gambling. You're enabling them. So you cannot say that you're helping to solve it. When you go to a therapist is not going to give you money to pay your debt. It's going to assist you to find ways to restructure and get back your life together. So necessarily helping someone pay their debt is not always the way to help them. But then there are intervention funds, which is why I said it's a two-way thing. When you realize that there is a crisis that must be managed immediately, especially when it is life-threatening, or you realize that this is going to cause danger to this person or the other person, you want to intervene. Such welfare funds are important, but it cannot be the typical way to address the issue.
All right, thank you. Emperor, I see your hand up, but I also see that you have a question. So I would allow you to just unmute yourself. You should be able to do that now, and then ask your question.
Good afternoon, ma. Though I've already typed the question on the chat box.
Okay.
I just want, can the government mandate that all gaming promoters require proof of date of birth when downloading a gaming application? Just to stop the underage from accessing gaming. Is it possible?
Okay, I can take that. And look, that's very interesting question. And technology will help. There is difference between government, mandating and then the implementation of those things already. So users downloading, it doesn't really matter much. You can't do anything at that point. Where you can do something is at registration, either in shop or even online when the user tries to register. The great news is we already have NIN, we have needs. There is nobody that does not have that, like age verification is there, KYC. So that's part of the extra feature that will be coming in with Safe Play. So at registration, if I put in my details and all of that, that just tap into the to names, verify is this guy it verifies the age straight away. Yes or no. If it's no, that's it. The person cannot gamble. So the person cannot go ahead to register. So that is one of the key features that is going to come in over time as well. Because if the government mandates, the another role is how do you police as well? How do you make sure they are doing it as well? But that's where technology comes in to make it happen, to enable. So I'm glad you're able to raise that, but that's one of the key features. You took that to my mouth. That will be coming as part of the
upgrades. Right.
Platform that will be building as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Also, just to add, the fact that the fact that someone has submitted a birth certificate does not mean that it is valid. This is where verification comes up. I was reading an article and then it was saying that some children, even when it came to video verification, all they had to do was paint on a mustache and the system would let them in. So really, this is why we're discussing technology and evolving. It's actually like Kayode has said, if you have NIN, which is why the government is mandating that players must submit and include their NIN. It is now for the operators to take that NIN and then go and verify, right? That would also help in reducing. It will not eliminate, it will only reduce, because we have situations where, if, especially to your question, you said when they are downloading gaming applications, the phone may belong to the parent whose profile is already set up as an adult, and a child is using that phone, has access to that phone and is using it to gamble. So yes, that's why we're discussing the dynamics of the problem. But like you said, this is something that is being considered. So on that note, yes, there are comments with respect to debt profile, talking about, I guess, ultimately, Gabriel, what you're pointing out is you have to understand that this problem doesn't sit just with gaming industry. The fact that the fintech is evolving so fast, so rapidly to solve another problem in other sectors, which is accessibility of funding for business. And then individuals are also taking advantage of this accessibility of funding to gamble. It just tells us that this problem is not a problem that can be addressed in isolation by the gaming industry. It's all hands has to be on deck to resolve this. So on that note, as we bring today's session to a close, it is very, very clear that technology is transforming the gaming industry in ways that maybe a decade ago we did not imagine. Right? Products are evolving fast, they're becoming more immersive, more accessible, and more intelligent. Technology now makes personalized engagement, real-time interaction, predictive analysis, and continuous play. It makes it possible, right? The real challenge is building systems that allows both innovation and responsibility to exist, because innovation is not the problem, technology is not the enemy, and banning games or products outright is rarely a sustainable solution. History has consistently shown that prohibition alone does not eliminate demand. It often just shifts activities from visibility and regulation, and that's not what we're trying to do. But what needs to be done is that regulation and oversight must extend to product development, behavioral designs, player engagement, and then even treatment and responsible gaming infrastructure. This responsibility is not that of the regulators or operators alone. Operators, developers, compliance professionals, public health experts, financial sectors, complementary regulators, civil society, payment providers, and even the players themselves. We all have a role to play in shaping a healthier and more sustainable gaming ecosystem. On behalf of SLEC Africa, I would like to sincerely thank our speakers. Fisayo Oke, thank you so much. Kayode Lawal, thank you. We're grateful. And Dr. Abiola Salau, thank you so, so much for stepping out of clinic to share your time with us. Thank you for your insights and for the perspective you have shared today. The conversation is not over. Please attend the Responsible Gaming Symposium. We all owe a duty to be there collectively, to continue to have conversation and take action about our industry. At SLEC Africa, we remain committed to creating platforms for industry learning, honest dialogue, and practical capacity building, not just for Nigeria, but across the continent. Thank you again for coming, and we look forward to having you next month again, God willing, God preserving our lives, for another webinar. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you.